to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Beagle,
I'm here tonight.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Present.
Councilmember Gotchel, Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Here.
Councilmember Sharp,
Present.
Councilmember Smiley,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight, City Manager?
Mayor had no changes nor additions.
Anybody in the dais? All right, seeing none. We'll move on to the public hearing. We have two public hearings tonight. Open up the public hearing for the first public hearing, which is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund application public hearing. The city will conduct a public hearing tonight in accordance with the requirements of the Michigan Department of Energy, Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE, regarding an application to the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The application seeks funding assistance for the city's proposed wastewater system improvement projects. This public hearing is being held tonight to receive comments from interested persons, and the action item will take place under new business number 3. Mr. Sigmund, DPW Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have submitted plans for treatment plant upgrades, and we've requested from the state some funding for that, for potential funding in the future. And we have Mike Darga here from Hubbell Roth & Clark. He has helped us with this application and would like to just go through the system and just kind of present that and then have the public hearing, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tim was saying we're talking about the project plan for the wastewater treatment plant improvements. This is for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The draft project plan was put on, made available to the public over 30 days ago. So I'm just going to have a brief presentation on the project plan itself and kind of what you can expect with the CW SRF loan. So what we're going to cover is the overview of the loan, review of the project plan, some alternatives, the user cost, social and environmental impacts, mitigation of the impacts, and we'll talk about the schedule. The CWSRF loan is a low interest loan. It's run by the state. Last year in 2022, the rate was 1.875% for the 20-year loan. For the exercises in this application here, we assumed 2%, just to take a guess that rates may go up a little. So to qualify for the loan, the city needs to submit an approvable project plan. We need to have a public hearing and made available to the public, which is what we're doing now. And then later on tonight, you'll need to pass a resolution adopting the plan. The final, so what EGLE will do, we'll get this project plan submitted, and then we won't like rate or score the project plans. So we're not going to really have a go or no go from EGLE until probably September, October. So any action tonight, you're not really going to see anything until later in the year. So here's the wastewater treatment plant. Things we're going to be talking about is the UV system upgrades, which are in the building right there. And then also PFAS removal and cleaning, which we're aiming for cleaning all 7 of those things right there. So the need for the project, the PFAS treatment and removal from the site. And we have cleaning of the land, application tanks, their digesters, and the old wastewater treatment plant tanks. We're going to look to upgrade the UV system. And then continue to meet the compliance requirements of the NPDES permit. So we had to look at a couple different alternatives for the project. The first was do nothing, no action alternative. This is not a favorable option or alternative. So because you're going to have continued degradation of the existing facilities, potential damage to the UV system, you could have increased difficulty meeting your discharge permit requirements, risk of PFAS contamination, higher energy consumption, and making these improvements in the future will most likely cost more. So focusing on the alternatives for the PFAS removal, back a few years ago, the city did remove some of the contaminated sludge from the land application tanks. And so that's the alternative we're recommending we continue with. This seemed to work very well. So this is an on-site cleaning system. And then another alternative would be to haul the material off-site as is, but you're still going to, which is more expensive just to haul it, plus it's expensive to, you still have to clean the tanks and then treat the material in the tanks that are left over. So no matter what, you're going to have some sort of on-site treatment. So it makes more sense to just bring that in right from the beginning and go with the first option. For the UV alternatives, we looked at expanding the existing system and putting in a new disinfection system, brand new one. Right in the either in the existing building where it is now, or we've looked at, there's room in the existing plant. There could be opportunity to move it into there. We haven't determined that yet, but it's still putting in a new UV system. Another alternative would be to replace the UV system in kind with what you have, just the new components, but then your future peak flows would have to be treated with a chemical. You'd have to introduce a chemical feed to it, which is just extra cost, extra whole nother process added to the system. So that's not recommended. Looking at cost for these projects, the PFAS removal, we're looking at $2.5 million. The UV disinfection upgrades, those alternatives, is $2 million. So it gives you a total project of $4.5 million. So assuming for a 20-year loan at 2% for that $4.5 million project, you're looking at a residential monthly increase of $3.53. This does not include any principal forgiveness or grants that may be available through this loan process. So this is kind of a worst case scenario. We had to look at social and environmental impacts. Looking at long-term, there's long-term impacts, short-term impacts, both positive and negative. Positive impacts, you're in compliance with your NPDES permit. You improve your efficiency and reliability of the plant. You have the ability to continue to process adequate wastewater treatment and protect public health. And then you're improving your processing and reduced wear on your equipment. Really, there's really no negative long-term impacts. Short-term impacts, these are impacts pretty much during construction. So a positive impact, you're going to see new jobs, might be some new workers going out to local restaurants or utilizing local businesses, and could even have local contractors. Some negative impacts, typical construction would be noise, dust, traffic-related construction, or during construction. Due to this being at the plant, that's more of a negative impact just for the guys working there, not necessarily the general public. How do we mitigate these impacts? By doing this stuff, we're going to prohibit the impact of the wetlands, the watershed, and other sensitive areas. And we're going to mitigate the short-term impacts related to the construction activities There's some permits involved, soil erosion, legal water main construction permits that we're going to have to follow. And then we're going to have to follow any contaminated materials, if we encounter them, how we're going to deal with them. Looking at the schedule, put the public hearing notice out April 22nd. The draft public plan, or project plan, was available April 24th at the clerk's office and online. Tonight we're having a formal public hearing. And tonight hopefully we'll pass the resolution adopting the project plan. And then June 1st we have to have the submittal into EGO. Construction-wise isn't going to happen until probably the end of 2023. We see the PFAS could go still into 2024. And then the UV disinfection upgrades will not happen until 2024. This we want to have 2 people working at the same time at the plant. They talked to the clerk this morning, and she has not received any written or email comments from anyone in the public. So, anyone comments?
Before we get into questions, I'm going to open up the public hearing. I'm going to read the rules to the public hearing. They are as follows. The persons desiring to address the council shall state their name and address. Individual persons shall be allowed 5 minutes to address the council. There shall be no questioning by the audience of persons addressing the council. However, the council members may question persons addressing the council, and no person shall be allowed to address the council more than once. So with that, do we have any questions? Any from the audience? All right, seeing none, I'll close the first public hearing. And we'll move on to the second public hearing tonight, and that is the fiscal year 2022-2023 proposed budget public hearing. In accordance to section 8.3 of the city charter, a public hearing on the proposed budget will be held on Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. The action item will take place under unfinished business number 1. A recommendation to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget and adoption of the requisite budget resolutions. Marilyn?
Good evening. The city is required to hold a public hearing in regards to setting of millage rates and the adoption of the annual budget for the upcoming fiscal year. As part of the hearing, I'll go through an overview of highlights from the fiscal year 2022-23 proposed budget. A copy of the presentation was also placed on your seats this evening. This public hearing was posted in the local newspaper in the May 4th edition, which is in compliance with our city charter. The first slide is just a summary of the changes that took place during our budget study session on May 2nd. The original budget was submitted to City Council on April 12th. We then held the budget session on May 2nd to review the budget. There was a few changes made, totaling $3,900 reduction in general fund expenditures. We did modify the Safety Path other fund budget to reflect the $91,667 contribution from the DDA for the downtown sidewalks. And the expenses for other funds were also allocated as such for the DDA paying for that portion of the sidewalk. And then federal police forfeiture, we added 2 traffic signs for a total of $6,000. Another requirement of the hearing is to discuss the millage rates that are proposed in the budget. The city millage rate is proposed at 11.8821, which reflects a decrease of 0.0637, and that reduction is due directly to Headley rollbacks, which equates to a reduction of $52,063. The chart below shows a snapshot of the levied millage rates that total to that 11.8821. And general operating will be set at 7.4503, operating voted at 3 mills, local road at 1.1357, and safety path at 0.2961. With those millages, we are still the 8th lowest in Oakland County compared to 31 other cities, which range from 8.359 up to 36.5895. The next slide is a summary of revenue for the general fund. We're looking at a decrease of $354,453 or 2.6112% compared to the estimated actual fiscal year 21-22. We had an increase in tax revenue of just over $447,000. Our state shared revenue is estimated to decrease by $357,629 when compared to the actual revenue received this current year. And the majority of that fluctuation is due to receiving a lump sum payment from state shared revenue for $328,807, which was for a retroactive adjustment for the census figures dating back to November 2020. There's also a budgeted decrease in building permits of approximately $266,000. Miscellaneous income is down by about $42,000 due to a decrease in federal grant revenue and video service franchise and PEG fees. We also indicate a decrease to the DDA contribution since the DDA has now finished paying back the prior year debt that was owed, and now we're entering into the period where we're reimbursing for city services. The next slide just shows a breakdown of that revenue by category. This shows the majority of our revenue, or 83% of it, comes from two main sources, which is taxes and state shared revenue, with the remainder being related to building permits, charges for services, which cover things like the DDA, roads, library, water, and wastewater, and transfers in from the library to cover their OPEB debt payment and other miscellaneous revenues. The next slide is a summary by department of expenditures that are included in the budget. Our operating expenditures increased by $794,101, and we've also reflected the $3.2 million contribution to road, safety path, and land acquisition. Main reasons for this increase were an additional $145,439 that was required towards our unfunded pension liability, wages and fringes of $519,847, a one-time HVAC cleaning of $37,000, and other changes of $91,815. The budget continues to provide for the normal cost of our other post-employment, or OPEB, in the amount of $79,435, and pension in the amount of $181,500. Along with an amortization payment of $359,304. The bonding process for unfunded liabilities was completed in August of 2018, and the bond payment activity is in two separate departments within the general fund. The general fund reflects an estimated balance at the close of fiscal year 22-23 of $4,691,817. New development and construction in the DDA results in an increase to the captured taxes within the district. Therefore, the DDA covered their annual debt payment, and the final repayment occurs this fiscal year that we're in. The proposed general fund reflects $157,366 for cost of services to the city from the DDA, and the DDA millage rate for fiscal year 22-23 will reduce from 1.2966 to 1.2766, which was also a result of Headley rollbacks. The budget reflects contributions totaling $3.2 million to major road, local road, and safety path land acquisition. The budget stabilization fund reflects an estimated balance at the close of next fiscal year of $1,352,817. Our permanent full-time positions will remain at 54. The solid waste and recycling service rates will be reduced from 180 to 165, and that's directly related to our recent waste hauler change that will take effect on 7/1. Our sewer utility rates will remain the same as this current fiscal year at $32.70 per unit, along with the customer charges and special sewer costs remaining the same. This year's cash reserves, along with the utilization of ARPA funding for a large project in the capital plan, allows for the no change to rates this year. Water utility rates will increase from $39 $39.60 per unit to $41, along with slight increases to meter maintenance and customer charges. The residential sewer cap, sewer-only customers, and industrial sewer-only will remain the same and have no increase. The next slide is a summary of our 10-year capital plan. Our contribution from the general fund will again be $995,000 this year. The 10-year plan goes over a period of time, so those expenses do fluctuate. And our total proposal in this year's budget was $2,996,423 for capital projects. For roads, safety path, and water wastewater capital, our major road improvements are $887,000 for West Maple Road, Grand River, road drainage and repairs, and pavement management. Local road improvements total $1,115,000 that provides funding for pavement management and preservation costs. Courts of Highgate, Maple Run 2 preventative maintenance, and Cliffs of Loon Lake preliminary engineering. Safety path improvements total $1,254,000, and that includes Wixom Road north of Potter to Palmer Drive, connection to the regional system, Wixom Road south of Pontiac Trail, the downtown sidewalk, which is being funded by the DDA, subdivision sidewalks, and various maintenance. Wastewater improvements total $3,460,463, consist of controllers, BPR system, secondary clarifiers, aeration, HVAC, and various upgrades. Water improvements total $187,305 and consist of meter replacements, reliability study, security, water tower repairs, general system repair, and hydrofits. And that is it.
Thank you. And with that, I'll open up the public hearing, and I'll read the rules for public hearing again. The rules are, the persons desiring to address the council shall state their name and address. Individual persons shall be allowed 5 minutes to address the council. There shall be no questioning by the audience of persons addressing the council. However, the council members may question persons addressing the council, and no person shall be allowed to address the council more than once. And with that, do we have any questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'll close the second public hearing. And we're going to move on to approval of minutes. We've got 2 sets of minutes to approve tonight. The first set of minutes are the budget study session minutes of May 2nd, 2022. Motion?
So moved. Support.
Any corrections, additions, deletions? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the budget study session minutes of May 2nd, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next up is the regular city council meeting minutes of May 10th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Any questions, corrections? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the regular city council minutes of May 10th, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no correspondence tonight. Call to the public. First call to the public, read the rules. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reasoning for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the first call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public and move on to city managers' reports. We have the departmental reports of April 2022. Any questions? Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. Now that we're into spring and it doesn't look like Ken is here, how much have we checked to see how much like code enforcement time we're spending every week? I've noticed that when it comes to landscaping and whatnot, there's a property on Potter that's been an issue for years that is knee-high. Bunch of businesses as well have extremely like tall grass and whatnot, and it doesn't seem like we've done anything yet.
I don't have the answer ready for you, but I can talk with Ken Flake about it and find out what the current status is. And if you have any properties that you want to bring to our attention, you can do that. We can make sure that we're paying attention to them from a code enforcement standpoint. We don't go out soliciting for those things, but as we notice them and when things are brought to our attention, we go ahead and point those out. And if it's something that egregious, I apologize that we haven't caught on to that, and we can make sure we address those.
I just know in years past that we've asked them about code enforcement, and it's in our contract with them, but it seems to not happen unless we ask it to happen. So that's just something.
Yeah, we'll follow up with that.
to be aware of.
It's an excellent point.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
Thank you. I have a couple questions about the F&B report. Let me just make sure I'm reading it correctly.
Good evening.
Hi.
By the way, Ruben John is here from F&D to answer your question.
So under the PFAS section, it talked about the report, the April sampling, and it showed the 9.4.
Yes,
That was total, right?
correct.
Okay. And then it gave a business name, and it gave the results for March.
Correct.
Are those just for that business?
That is correct. Each one of those, Plant 4 has its own discharge, Plant 5 has its own discharge.
So what was the total PFAS then for March compared to April?
You can't, PFO and PFOS cannot be added together to get a total number for PFAS. You have to look at them individually. So if you were to look at PFOA for March versus the month before in February, they're the same for Plant 4. There is a limit to which the labs can report an amount. They can't really go less than that, if that's what you're asking.
I'm just trying to see the comparison between.
Is it reducing?
Will we go up higher or will we lower?
Plant 5 has gone up. They were issued a violation for that, for the PFAS number. There is a standard for that. Their permit requires them to meet 11 nanograms per liter or less. They exceeded it for March. They were issued a violation and asked to investigate the reason for it.
And what does that consist of?
They would have, so their granular activated charcoal unit, which they were required to put in because of the PFAS contamination, they should be producing results that are very similar or if not exactly the same as Plant 4. They're the same technology, the same plant, and they weren't. So they were asked to investigate what the cause was, if there was a breakthrough, if there was a failure in their methodology. They were issued that about last week, so I'm waiting for results from that investigation.
And are there fines involved in that?
There are fines, but it's going to be more enforcement action up to and involving shutdown of process.
And then my other question was regarding the bad soil and grease. I don't know if that would be a question for you. Or
No, I can try my best to answer that.
Okay. So I see on the bottom of page 10, it talks about the staff is working with the city to collect information on property owners that do not have the in-ground grease interceptors. Is that something new? That's something we've been doing all along, isn't it?
It is my understanding that older businesses were grandfathered in as long as they were able to maintain the smaller units underneath their kitchen sinks or their restaurant sinks. But newer restaurants that are going in are required to, and I believe it's based on the type of size, type of food or the amount of people served, are required to put in a special unit that separates the grease.
And do they have so long to do that, to comply with that?
I believe they do. There is an order. They have to be certified. They have to pass the inspection for that before they can go into business.
And we're staying up on that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Berman.
Thank you. Most of my questions are probably for Drew. Unfortunately, he's not here, so maybe the city
I can
manager.
do my best.
Maybe you can help me with them. The first one's regarding the proposals that went out for the planning consultant, and it indicated that we got two back. It seems low to me. I mean, what are we doing to try to drum up more people submitting proposals when we're trying to go out? Are all we doing is posting it on BidNet and hoping that we get?
We have conducted word of mouth to my knowledge of what Drew's done with people in the business that he's familiar with, but it's kind of a situation where the bandwidth isn't there for some firms, and I think that's playing a role in depressing participation in bids.
So I know we had the same issue with a prior contract, and I'm just concerned if there's anything we could do to drum up participation and.
Yeah, we do try to do the word of mouth thing with people in the business and talk to them about their interest in participating in our bid processes, but it's one of those situations where you can't make somebody do it if they don't have the organizational interest to do it, then that's the way it's going to work out. That's, I think, what we're getting caught up with more than anything.
The second was more just of a comment. He indicated that they were working with the downtown businesses to let them know of the Airline 2 project.
Yeah.
My wife and I had breakfast at Backyard Pony, and the staff there seems to have no idea what's happening with the path out front. I'm not sure if it'd be beneficial for someone to go door to door, or maybe just the ownership's not sharing it with the employees, but they all seem...
Can I just interject? I've talked to Tom about it, so...
Yeah, but it was weird that the employees were going around telling everyone, I had no idea. The last one was for Kelly's report, really. But again, I guess that would fall under you. The proposed auto dealership that was proposed at the, I guess where the restaurant used to be on Wixom Road. I haven't heard anything more about that. I've noticed they're storing cars out front, but they haven't done any remodeling. There's probably, 10 cars in the parking lot now that have been there for a couple weeks. I don't know if we can follow up on what's happening there.
I have to say that I have not had an update on that either, but I can ask staff about that and see what the current status is and what the delay is, if there is one, in terms of the lack of progress on the site.
Now, I haven't seen anything happen with the building, but I do see that cars are showing up, so I feel like that would first has to happen before the second, but
I would agree, so we'll check into that.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. So I have a motion and a second to approve the city manager's reports. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries. Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished new business. Do I have a motion? So moved.
Support.
With that, I've got a motion and support to approve the consent agenda as presented tonight. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Moves on to table item number 1. It's CEM-05-59-22. It's a motion and a second made by Deputy Mayor Resnick and Councilmember Smiley to table the discussion on Charter Commission Review Committee notes to another meeting so they could further review their notes and attorney comments. Do I have a motion to open it, or?
I can make the motion.
Support.
Okay, very good.
Well, can I make a motion?
Certainly.
I'd like to make a motion to remove it from the table and to refer it back to committee.
Support. Any comments? Councilmember Gretchen Fox?
So I know I wasn't here, I was sick, so I apologize, being that I was on the committee. And I guess I'm a little confused about the whole issue. It was a joint decision at this table to have a committee and have us, excuse me, go through the whole charter, which we did. Myself, Councilmember Smiley, Councilmember Gatchel, and, excuse me, as well as staff. And then I get the feeling that there was some confusion maybe about well, should we only bring back so many issues? Or what that consensus was. So I'm wondering, excuse me, if we can talk about that for a minute.
Certainly. Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I mean, during the discussion, there was a lot of the items that we had received comment back from the city attorney that evening. They were here on their chairs. And many of these issues that were brought up were already covered under MCL, so public acts and state of Michigan. And then some of them were just routine spelling error, mathematical things too. We had spent, I think it was, 17 minutes on the first item, and we said it's going to take 4 hours to go through it. Our discussion was, should the committee go back with the attorney's comments, cross out the ones that are already defined by Michigan Public Act, and superseded anyway. So why did we even try to amend those? And then come with a consolidated list of the 3, 4, 5 true items that we should be considering for ballot language. So that was the discussion. That's what we came to.
Okay. So there were several on here, several chapters and sections that weren't addressed by the attorney. So my question is, what about those? What about those items that there was no comment from the attorney? Does that mean they're okay, we don't need an amendment, they don't recommend an amendment? What's the status on those?
If I may, through the chair there, Your Honor. So I think the MO of the city attorney representative on that was to just basically make comments on things that clarified things or perhaps spoke to somehow how they were already addressed within the charter, whether there was a state law that was relevant to the concern that was raised in the charter and what that implication what implications that would have for that particular item that was brought up by the Charter Review Committee. And I believe if they did not, if Deb Wallin did not make any comment on an item, it just meant that was not anything where she had any that kind of feedback for us. So she wasn't trying to tell us, yes, you should pursue this, no, you shouldn't pursue this. She was just bringing up concerns about or points about things that were relevant to those particular items. And if she didn't have a comment in there, I believe it was basically just representative of there was nothing like a state law or anything else in the charter, and it was just up to council to determine if they wanted that to be, if that was something that raised to the level of wanting to pursue a charter amendment on it, I believe would be the lack of a comment, what it would mean.
Councilmember Berman.
I appreciate the work that you guys did going through the charter and coming up with a vaster list than what I thought was going to be coming forward. The fact of the matter is I don't think that putting 28 different charter amendments on the ballot is something that I'd like to see. And in my view, sending it back to committee is why I made the motion, is for you guys to really tighten it up to the 3 or 4 things that you think need to move forward sooner than later, and then letting us as a council discuss those 3 or 4 things and moving forward that way. Us spending 5-6 hours discussing all 28 items that frankly I just would never feel comfortable putting that many things on the ballot at one single time is why I think it needs to go back to committee. My view on it when we sent it to committee is that you guys were going to bring us, the things that need to be changed, and it seems like maybe we got more of a wish list, and some of them, I do think some of the things probably need to be looked at. But I also don't necessarily think that at least during a meeting, a normal meeting, it would make sense for us to spend the 5 hours doing it. After you guys meet as a committee and go through the city council notes and you really think that all 20 items need to be discussed as a council, then at that point I would think that really a special meeting outside of normal business would be appropriate, but I'm not comfortable with us, just keeping everyone, our department heads and everyone here to midnight to go through 28 items tonight, and I wasn't there 2 weeks ago as well. So that's where I would like to see it. At least you guys go back and, carve out what you can from the city attorney's notes, and then really define what you guys think is the most important thing to move forward, and then we can, as a body as a whole, discuss those things and get what we can on the ballot and start, chipping away at the changes that have been discussed for years.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. If I can just add to what Councilman McBurman said, the other comment made by the city attorney, I think Madam Clerk also added some light here, was that the language in its entirety would have to show up on the ballot pre and post changes, which would make for a very, very confusing ballot. So it would be quite laborious to actually have to publish that, educate the public. So that was another comment that was made at the meeting.
And then I'm just going to add that with the next election being a major election too, to keep having 28 different things on the ballot. I think if we did chipped away, got the 4 or 5 most important ones on the ballot now, and corrected those, and at the next election we do another 4 or 5, and we'll get where we need to be on the charter changes. Councilmember Gaccio.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to make a clarification, the intent was not to put 28 things on the ballot. That was never the intent. The intent was to go through, look at items that we as a group thought that were important to discuss, but it was never to put 28 items on. I mean, that would be ridiculous. And I think we all agree to that. I just want to clarify that.
I second that comment as well. When the committee was formed, it was to review the charter in its entirety and bring back things that we're not doing currently that are in the charter that we should be following, items that need to be amended in the charter, and then other questions came up, like the 3-mile rule that we discussed at the election. No one knows what that's for. It was done in the 80s, and there weren't any notes or recordings of, hey, here's what we meant. So when it comes, I think there was maybe incorrect expectations on that point, because the 3 to 4, 4 to 5 comments about how many things are going to come up, there's a lot more than that. And if you reviewed the charter, you would understand there's a lot more than that. When it comes to things that should be removed after the attorney's notes, there were 9 things that I had found that were kind of negated by state law, other things that still need to be addressed. And as it goes to the entirety text notion, I believe that was purely in reference to if we had changed and updated the pronouns, then we would have to have that in every instance where it would change. Not for every single amendment we're doing, we're going to have to put the change text of what we currently have, the red line version, and what it will become. That, I don't believe, was the accurate recollection of it. So this list was staff and a few council members going through to look at all of the items. Sure, some of them are grammatical errors and spelling errors, and those would be housekeeping issues. We wouldn't be discussing those at length. Everyone understands that what something should be. So this fear that we're going to be 5 or 6 hours, I think, is frankly unfounded. It's a little bit disappointing that the thought is, hey, let's throw it back to committee, because the expectation that I'm gathering from this is that we come back to you with 3 or 4 things when there's a heck of a lot more that needs to be addressed or at least discussed. So I think there's a big difference between what the expectation was, what the understanding was, and what the reality is we do a lot of things that don't follow the charter currently. We also have a bunch of charter issues, like we have written in, again, millages that expired years and years ago. And so when we get to those on the list, everyone can agree, yeah, it's 2022, not 2009, so we can remove that. And so I just think we're not going to be here 5 or 6 hours discussing this. I think the reality is, and I had sent out an email to the other council members on the committee categorizing things into more pressing items, housekeeping items, and then other things worth discussing, which are also important, but there seems to be some feeling or perception that some of these can go away and they're not important. When the committee's understanding was these are all the issues as they stand and issues that council members have brought up over the years that are worth discussing. So I think that's where we have to kind of reconcile the differences. I don't see this list ever getting down to 3 or 4 items because there are not just 3 or 4 issues.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was on the committee, and just a real quick question to Councilman Gottschall. When you say you don't think there'll be 3 or 4, I see there being 3 or 4 ballot items, and maybe that's it. But there's more than 3 or 4 items that we can discuss as a group to clean up, pound out, come to a consensus on. Do you think there's not? Would you can you make a distinction between 3 or 4?
I think a lot of the notes for chapter 4 need to be addressed in here.
But I mean, are ballot items 3 or 4 items?
I would not
enough.
expect there to be more than
Think
that.
there'll be more? Okay.
I think a lot of them, like, I think it's dumb that we have to go, if we have to go on the ballot to correct a grammar error and a spelling error.
Right.
If that's the case, then that adds to the list.
Okay.
But
I don't want to debate the individual items. I just want to make that clarification because, after spending, a lot of time, getting this list to where it was, and then to have the city attorney give her take on a lot of stuff, it was very enlightening and cleaned up a lot of the things that we, were, chasing or looking after or wanted to discuss. I think this really whittles down quite a bit with her discussion, or with her comments, and I don't think we're going to have a lot of items to put on the ballot. But whether there's 10 or there's 3, I don't see any of them as on fire. Nothing's crucial for getting in this year. We've spent a lot of time building up to a point where we finally had a committee and we went through it. I don't feel rushed to get this in and on the ballot for this year, and I don't want to be rushed. So we can meet again. I support the idea of the 3 of us just putting our heads together one more time, going through this, creating something nice and clean and condensed that is broken up into, hey, these are things that are the ballot we've got to discuss. Here's things that they're not for the ballot, but we need to discuss. Here's a bunch of stuff that, hey, this is what we think we need to do, is just clean up housekeeping stuff. We don't even need to talk about them unless it wants to be brought up during, whatever meeting it's supposed to be. I think we're making too much of this, and that, I don't think we're going to be 5 hours, but I think 2 hours is too much for us to sit and talk about this. We got a job to go make this happen, and we did. I think we did a bang-up job. I think we just brought too much to this table, and a meeting is typically a couple hours. We're going to double it with, at best, with what we brought previous meeting. The city attorney did a wonderful job of giving us some feedback that helps us. We don't have to even talk about some of these items because her comments make it something we don't have to discuss. Then finally, next year is an off-year election, and we'll have, just the city of Wixom coming to the polls. That would be a perfect time to have, items that have to do with just the city, instead of going, onto a ballot that's got everything from the governor to precinct delegates.
County commissioner.
Yeah, thanks. Instead, next year we'll kind of like have our spotlight on just us in the city. And there's an item on here that you think we got to get on the ballot, you know, right now, then, and maybe there's even two. Let's discuss those. But I don't think anything's on fire here, and we can proceed at whatever pace this group is comfortable with. That's it.
You know, I wish that if there was a list that was sent out with the 8 or 9 items that we think are important, I think I would have appreciated it if it would have went out to the whole council and we could have talked about it tonight and settled it. But now, you know, we have a motion on the table to send it back to you guys, so it'll be, you know, at least another 2 weeks before we talk about it again, because we do have to honor the motion. So if we had that, we probably could have settled this tonight. Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I supported Councilmember Behrman's motion. He and I did speak ahead of the meeting. I think we need to manage our expectations, and council probably didn't do a good job of that with the subcommittee. But my expectation of a subcommittee is that you would think as council would think. We kind of take a subcommittee and think as council would think and bring forward the recommendations of things that need to go on the ballot. The rest of the nice list of things that we can read at our leisure and maybe bring forward at a future date. But if there's something that absolutely must change for this ballot, then bring those in. Frankly, I think what Councilmember Smiley said is right. There wasn't anything on fire. Lots of interesting things, but nothing that, in my mind, needed to be changed for this fall. So I don't feel the need to ramrod this through, but I do think the committee can go back and create the list of 28 and say, of the 28, these 3 are what we recommend as a committee, because that's what we've asked the committee to do, is think as council would think as a whole, and bring those few, very few, I would think, items back to council. Thank you.
Councilmember Gilman Fox?
I would agree that there's nothing on this list that would put the city of Wixom in any type of jeopardize the way we run our business. I don't have a problem with going back and narrowing it down. I will say, just from my perspective, there's probably 7 to 9 things, and I'm not saying that need to go on the ballot now, but that should be addressed. But I don't have a problem at all doing that and whittling down this.
And you know, it may be 7 or 9 issues that go on the ballot once they're presented to us, and we may say, yeah, all these 7 need to go on the ballot. But I think it would be wise to go back and make a list like that. Councilmember Gotcha?
Thank you. The email was sent to the people on the committee because it was an effort to try to address the issues with last meeting, not to hide anything, so I want to point that out. Not that I think, honestly, it would have gotten us to any different result tonight, because it seems to be that we just want to take an abundant amount of time. So I guess the expectation moving forward, if we're going to literally spend the next 12 months going over these, why is everyone afraid to discuss all of what's left? Why do we have to take 12 months to figure out 4 things? Because that's what we're looking at, is to be on the ballot for December 2023 is what I'm hearing. Will be in June, because that's what it is this year. So we're looking at 12 months to discuss things, and we're acting like it's the end of the world to break it up and go through all of these, and we need to send it back to committee to condense it. You're giving yourself 12 months, so, and they're all issues. Do any of them need to be on the ballot immediately? No, but they all do need to be, I believe, discussed. So I don't know where we go from here, honestly, because I'm hearing, hey, we don't really want to discuss too much over the next 12 months, but let's just have a discussion about what you bring back to us. Well, if we bring you back the majority of these, we're going to have the same discussion of, it's going to take too long. You're giving yourself a full year. What's wrong with breaking it up and discussing all of it?
Well, I never accused anybody of hiding anything. I just said we could have probably gotten further along than we are going to get tonight if we brought out. And I also stated that it's a work in progress, and let's do a couple now and a couple, and eventually get this done. I'm not saying wait 12 months and throw 33 things on the ballot. I'm saying let's do some now, let's do some at the next election. Let's rate these, all 28, let's go over these, and the ones that we need to be done, put them in, importance of how you feel, bring it back to us. We'll put some on the next ballot, and then we'll put some more on the next ballot, and we'll get this corrected. But if it was brought out that I thought you guys were hiding something, that's not what I meant. I just meant that if we would have had this, we could have talked about it tonight and gotten further along than what we're at tonight. Any other comments, questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
And just, I do like Councilman Gottschall's idea of eliminating the 9 items that are covered by state statute, and then separating the items into material and important, housekeeping, and grammatical and spelling errors. Maybe doing it that way in some sort of condensed form, and then we can look at it, and then a lot of it we do not need discussion on. Like I said, fully is spelled wrong. I don't know if we want to put that on the ballot. So I like that idea of getting the condensed, already remove the 9 items that are from the state statute, and then the true material items and then also.
Councilmember Berman?
Thank you. My question probably is more for the clerk. The housekeeping items where words have been spelled wrong in our charter for, 35 years now? The only way to fix those is still through a charter amendment?
I would say that's correct.
Is it possible to fix all the housekeeping issues through one amendment, just like the pronoun issue? I just would hate to do 10 different amendments just to fix spelling errors.
We're not.
Oh, okay. But I still think, I stand by my motion to let the committee take one more stab at it before we put, try to condense it down to really what they think needs to happen, because they put way more time and effort into it than we have, and I think them putting forward what is the most important is more would be more fair than us just spending all night going through them. And frankly, I think we put too many things on the ballot, and we're going to run into the issue of people saying, well, everything's fine now, and just voting no on everything. So I'd rather make sure what we're going to put on the ballot is well thought out, and we have ample time to educate the community on why we're making these changes. So if we put all this time and effort into it to make these changes, they actually pass.
Councilmember Smiley?
Just one last little comment. For years we talked about doing this project, and it was a big project, and I'm very proud of the work we did. But again, it took years just to get to the point where we're like, okay, we finally made the time, we formed a committee, and in the last couple of months, we did it. So one more meeting, and we'll have this cleaned up in a nice presentation. Maybe we'll make slides, and that will help, move things along a little bit. I still can't believe this is that big a deal, because we took this much time to get to this point, and I don't know, my feathers aren't ruffled. I just wanted one more meeting, clean it up, give it to the rest of us here, and it'll be done.
Any other comments? All right, I got a motion and a second to return the to the Charter Review Committee, the committee notes, and get back to us. Would that be proper?
At least, for them to go to that committee and review the notes and get us a more condensed version of what they'd like us to discuss.
Very good. Did you get that, Claire? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yes.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gottschall?
No.
Councilmember Brendan Fox?
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no.
Very good, thank you. Next up is unfinished business, and it's a recommendation to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget and adoption of the requisite budget resolutions. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Any questions? Councilmember Sharp?
I'm the only one. So I just wondered, Ms. Stamper, maybe you can tell me where did we end up in our wage and salary increase, and was it reviewed by the Wage and Salary Committee? And did they recommend support 4%? It was in budget session. Is that where we're at right now?
That's correct. Wage and Salary has not done the formal review for next year's raises yet, so that will be forthcoming. I'm not sure what the schedule on that is.
So if I could step in, I would consider what's budgeted as a item that has a little bit of cushion in there for whatever decision gets made by Wage and Salary, potentially. And if they somehow go beyond that, we have to do some sort of budget amendment, but if not, we've got it covered. That makes sense.
I can't really pose the question to the Wage and Salary Committee here. Is that the Wage and Salaries Committee's understanding of how the process works?
Yeah, and that's how we've done it in years past, is that a budget amount gets put in there. But until we get the survey results back from Michigan Municipal League and that stuff, we can't really, we don't have data.
Okay, all right. I can support as a budget number, but that isn't an ipso facto declaration of what everybody's going to get. Okay.
Now, there'll still be action by council regardless.
All right, thank you. One other question then, along the same lines for the assistant city manager position is still shown as the quite significant increase for the city manager position, not the person.
Wage and
Salary has not looked at that either. Same situation there. We'll treat that as a budgetary placeholder and not a guarantee of anything.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Gacho?
Not really question so much as comment. I guess when it comes to the wage and salary stuff, why do we do it in like we've had a few weeks now that wage and salary may have been able to meet about the assistant city manager item, but why do we do the wage discussions after we've determined a budget amount? It seems almost backwards to me. Like, we should have it figured out how much of an increase people will get, and then that's what we budget. Instead, we budget a certain amount, and then we traditionally give that amount. And so I think that's what Councilmember Sharp is trying to bring to everyone's attention, but it seems like it should be reversed almost.
I really can't comment on that other than you could do it either way. It's just the practice has been, the timing has been that has occurred in that fashion historically, and hasn't been a situation where we felt that we need to make a change in MO. When we get Wage and Salary Committee together, we can have that discussion and see if there's interest in changing that MO when Wage and Salary gets together.
Okay.
It's a valid question.
Yeah. Aside from that, I mean, I'm not going to rehash all of the items that I brought up during our budget study session, but I'm not a fan of a number of things in this budget, and particularly how we're spending items and addressing the ARPA funding and whatnot. So I'm going to be a no on this tonight.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Just to comment on the budget process is that even, everything I've been involved with in private and public sector, the budget sets an amount, but a lot of times reviews and salary discussions aren't until 3 months later, right? When budgets are due by November of the previous year and then approved by some board, reviews and salary adjustments usually get made after the fact of the budgeting process itself. So it's just very, very typical of private and public sector. Oakland County used to do it 3 years in advance, right?
Yep.
They would put an advance amount in there just as a budget placeholder.
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree about budget being the right way to do it. I just think that 4% is a pretty nice budget number. Local communities around us, and the Spinal Column just published Township of Milford. I know that's, they have a pretty healthy budget, $17 million budget. I know there's ins and outs that make it a little different. You can't compare apples to apples. 2.5% was their salary increase for Milford Township. So just something for I'm sure the Wage and Salary Committee will take all that into account, but and I want to be sure this is in the minutes, 4% we're budgeting for wage and salary increase. And we have to be relative to our neighbors.
So if I may, Your Honor, the only reason it's at that figure is because of conversations that were held at prior council meetings, including those with Councilmember Sharp, to have a discretionary potential change, not a standard across the board kind of thing. So that's a ceiling type of thing, not to be an across the board thing. That is not the intent. Just to be clear, for that to be an across the board raise, that's just to reflect that kind of flexibility for some additional monies. It's an approximation, a guess at what might occur type of thing. It's not intended to be an across the board raise.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Smiley.
Just real quick, I do support the budget. There were a couple, I think we all had a couple of items that we, groused at, that we decided, well, okay, the item or the category was close enough, and when it comes up, the individual items present themselves here, that's when we'll give it a little more thorough debate. So I'm comfortable with that process. We've done that for years, and it took me a little bit to figure that out when I was, first year on council. That it's not locked in in the budget, but when I would crystal ball, we have to set something up for what's down the road, and we all see that crystal ball would be really nice right about now for our crazy world. Yeah. So I'm good.
Very good. Councilmember Gacho.
Thank you. When it goes back to it, I just want to address the deputy mayor's comment. I understand how we do it and how private business does it, and it makes sense for private business because those are like revenues we're collecting, we're selling stuff and whatnot, but this is tax money we're taking from people, and we've never been in the habit of giving it back if we don't use it. So that's my concern, is I think it might make sense to discuss doing it the other way around if we can get some of it addressed, and we know that hey, we're only going to do 2.5% or 3%. That just means maybe we don't need to collect a little bit more from residents. So that's where the thought comes from, generally speaking. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget and adoption of the requisite budget resolutions. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho?
No.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox?
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Aye.
6 yes, 1 no.
Motion passes. Thank you. That concludes unfinished business. We move on to new business. New business item number 1 is a recommendation to approve amendments to the intergovernmental lockup services agreements with the Village of Wolverine Lake and the City of Walled Lake, adding an additional year of services for a fee of $90.90 per prisoner per day, revenue to be recognized in account number 101-000-626.000, prisoner lodging, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the amendments on behalf of the city. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Public Safety Director Moore.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. What you have before you is a request to approve 2 amendments to 2 agreements, one with the City of Walled Lake, one with the Village of Wolverine Lake. Since 2009, the Wixom Police Department has been lodging prisoners for both communities. This is the only language in this agreement that's being changed is the rate at which we're going to charge per prisoner per 24-hour period, and it's a 3% increase. So we're going from $88.25 per prisoner per day per 24-hour period up to $90.90 per prisoner per 24-hour period.
Any questions? Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. 3% sounds like a good increase for them, what they're paying us for housing prisoners. Is there a way we came up with 3? I like 3%. Is there a reason why 3%?
Because our service aides are probably perhaps going to get a 3% pay raise. That was how I figured that based on.
I know those are union folks, right?
No,
Oh, no.
service aides are not. They're non-union.
3% raise, not 4, 3.
I'm making a point. Thank you very much. Thank you. Director Moore?
Any other questions? All right, don't go too far. I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve amendments to the intergovernmental lockup services agreements with the Village of Wolverine Lake and the City of Walled Lake, adding an additional year of services for a fee of $90.90 per prisoner per day, revenue to be recognized in account number 101-000-626.000, prisoner lodging, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the amendments on behalf of the city. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. New business number 2 is a recommendation to approve an amendment to the Intergovernmental Police Records Management Services Agreement with the Village of Wolverine Lake and adding an additional year of services for a fee of $20,884.08, revenue to be recognized in account number 101-000-582.035, police records management income, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign amendment on behalf of the city. Do I have a motion?
Support.
You're up again.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. What you have before you is a request to approve one amendment for one agreement, and that's between the City of Wixom Police Department and the Village of Wolverine Lake. Since 2011, the Wixom Police Department has provided the administration of police records management services to the Village of Wolverine Lake Police Department. That current contract is due to expire June 30th, 2022, and I'm requesting an increase of 2% on this particular one.
Why couldn't it work?
Now, the logical question is why was lodging of prisoners 3%, this one 2%? As I looked historically at what we've done with this records management services, I see that 3 years ago we gave them a 12% increase followed by a series of 2.5% increases. So upon speaking with the police chief over there, we believe that 2% was the fair, based on the level of service we provide them and the service we do not provide them, which is spelled out in the agreement. We believe 2% was the fair increase this year, but I did put him on notice that perhaps next year the next chief of police would take a hard look at that number, and with everything going on with inflation, that he might expect something more than 2% next year.
Any other questions? All right. I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve an amendment with the Intergovernmental Police Records Management Services agreement with the Village of Wolverine Lake, adding an additional year of services for a fee of $20,884.08. Revenue to be recognized in account number 101-000-582.035. Police records management income, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the amendment on behalf of the city. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. New business number 3 is a recommendation to adopt the resolution for a wastewater system improvements final project plan and designate Tim Sigma as the authorized representative to sign the submittal forms for the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy funding assistance through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
And if you guys remember, this is what we talked about under public hearing number 1. Do you want to add anything, Tim, before we go to questions? All right.
Open for questions.
Councilmember Gacho?
Thank you. One of the slides showed an expected monthly cost that was to repay the loan, correct?
That is correct.
And it said residential expected cost. Wanted to just confirm that.
It's
residential?
actually the users of the treatment systems. That's how that would be generated.
So it's commercial and industrial will be bearing some of it?
It would be,
Okay.
yeah. So that's an average cost, we just, as an estimated cost overall, and that is the worst case scenario.
Okay.
If we have principal forgiveness or something else, we're going to, put that into that calculation as well. And this does not, authorize the actual loan. It's just an application for the loan. So once we have an agreement with the state, I would obviously bring that back for review at that time.
Has anyone approached Tri-Bar about any costs to help reduce like the other user monthly additional fees? Really, all of this seems to spur from them.
It does in certain situations. There's also some other implied things through the state that have changed in rulings since then. So it's we have talked about it for a while.
Do we anticipate that Tri-Bar will contribute any amount of, like some amount of money, or do they not care to? They're going to pay the increase everyone else decides to pay?
They are going to remain in compliance, and in any kind of future problems that we could have would cause enforcement actions that would include fines and penalties. And so at that point, we would have the leverage, if you will, to imply more a user fee for that situation.
So the goal, I guess, would be if we're cleaning everything, we should be showing as our discharge after everything's done, 0 PFAS. You would hope.
You would hope. Now this, what we have in the treatment plant in storage is not part of the treatment system currently. So it's just a liability at this point, and we want to remove that so we decrease our liabilities for future.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Tim, has Tri-Bar, has they been issued any fines?
So the most recent ones that they have are surcharges that we've charged them for phosphorus discharges, and over the last, I should say the last 6 months of last year, 2021, they paid $20,000 in phosphorus surcharges.
Okay. How long have we been dealing with this PFAS thing? Because I guess what I'm thinking is we're dealing with them long enough. We keep saying, comply, comply, comply.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, it's not going to happen. So maybe we need to start hitting them in the pocketbook, and maybe they will comply a little bit better. But as long as we don't do anything like that, what's their incentive to comply? Because
we're following our enforcement program that's certified by the state, and as we have problems, we increase that. So it's kind of like initial ticket, and you get 12 points and you lose your license kind of thing. And we're probably, we might be on, with that reference, 8 points.
Okay. Because I got a question about Tri-Bar in my comments too, so.
No problem.
Councilmember Berman.
Thank you for both of you for basically starting to hit on some of my points. The first question I really had was just regards to the notice of this agenda item, and then the public hearing notice. I mean, none of them sent us back to the 115-page slideshow, which would have been nice if we got to see prior to the meeting this evening. And that's just, because I didn't, by reading this, the one thing attached was the application.
Mm-hmm.
And the public hearing notice, there's nothing referenced the fact that there was a slideshow presentation available on the city website for us to review.
So last month we posted that in both the spinal column and in the council meeting minutes that we would have that available.
Okay. Well, because nothing drew my attention to go back and look at it. And then the bigger issue I have is that we're talking about a $43 per household tax hike, basically, right? Every house is going to pay an extra $43 for us to treat this problem at our wastewater plant that is basically caused by one industrial client. And I understand following our protocol of them going down the strikes, but if they've cost us $4 million worth of a problem, and we're going to ask every residential household to spend $43 a year for the next 20 years to pay for it, it's just not fair.
So the SRF loan fund is the only state finances available. And when we initially applied for this back in January, they implied that there was going to be in principle forgiveness for PFAS-related things. That's why we're having this in there specifically. Now, if it doesn't make sense for the city of Wixom, after review from the state, that we finance through an SRF loan, I won't recommend it, but I'm trying to follow all the guidelines so that we're first in line if there are applications or if there are ways to finance this effectively through the SRF program. This is the venue the state created for us to apply for these kind of finances.
And if there's principal forgiveness, it would make complete sense to go down this path. I won't be a favor in the end if we're asking all of our residents to pay $43 a year for a problem that was created by one user.
Correct. And I agree with that.
Okay.
And I don't feel that I would make that recommendation based on what I know now. But I don't know how the state is responding to the PFAS situations, and we're trying to make sure that we're in line if there are funds available for that. And this was the venue that was pointed out from the state that we would see. Now, it's similar in the road situations. We're looking at Act 51 monies, but we haven't seen those funds yet, so we don't know exactly how much is going to be in there. So we're trying to be conservative in that as well. Again, this is an application for a potential loan, and if it doesn't make sense, once we get the criteria from that loan back, if it doesn't make sense for the city of Wixom, I won't recommend it.
And I'm in support of this.
Thank you.
Again, this is just we're recommending the approval for you to sign the papers and begin the paperwork.
Yep.
We're not committed to anything.
We are not committed to the finances yet.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. Tim, one of the things I just want to clarify, I remember from the discussions 3 years ago that Tri-Bar might be the biggest, but not the only contributor to PFAS and PFOS into the input side of our sanitary system. Is that correct?
That is correct. In fact, we did residential monitoring early on, and the northern areas came back with 4 to 5 parts per trillion or grams.
Just the residential.
In just the residentials. So there is some impact from the residentials.
Yeah.
The
And
primary,
other industrial.
the higher concentrations that we're seeing in the Landep tanks is most likely from only a few industries.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. It's not
Yes,
just
sir.
one.
You're right.
Number two, I know that the SRF application is for biosolids tank and the land application tank cleanup and improvements. That's all on the output side, correct?
Correct.
Is anything also going to be looked at from the input side in terms of any grant monies?
We will look at the other sides as well. We have not seen those as of yet. Another piece we did have in there was the UV disinfection, and
Is that post-processing or pre?
that's post-processing for disinfection purposes as it goes to the creek for pathogen reduction and bacteriological activity. So that is a portion of the plant that would benefit. That is for the whole of the community. Whether we go through that with this particular funding or use the funding we have in our in the escrow accounts will be determined later. But again, we're not sure. There's an NPDES permit that's will be implied in the next 5 years. We'll need financing potentially to meet requirements of that. There are other things. This application is for a 5-year period, and I can't foresee what's there yet. So I'm not.
I just think as things progress and we're not able to eliminate all of the discharge from industrial and residential users,
Right.
there's got to be something eventually that comes up on the input side of plants like ours.
Right.
That we can at least not process the contaminated materials.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Mr. Sigma.
Hi.
A few things. I'm glad, Deputy Mayor Resnick, kind of cleaned up the idea that, PFAS, at the facility is all Tri-Bar's fault. That's not fair either. We've got, it's an issue that's being dealt with by multiple, businesses. And we would need these improvements to our facility regardless, right? I mean, these are improvements we've talked about for a little while. We knew it was coming, correct?
Yep.
Okay, good. And then this I'm not 100% sure about, but I remember talking about this a couple of years ago when PFAS was, first hot in the news. But the regulations for what was permissible were tightened up dramatically. Well, they were tightened up. I don't know how dramatic they were. So while there were businesses right here in Wixom that were doing just fine, in compliance with how much PFAS was being emitted, whatever, but the standards got lowered, and suddenly they're out of compliance, and some of them struggled to kind of fix that or get that fixed, corrected. And they're continuing to work on it, it sounds like, at quite an expense, $20,000 in fines. And is it your impression, and it's okay to say you don't know, I mean, but that they're trying to get it to a compliant level, but it's a tough standard to get to, and they're trying. Is that?
That is correct.
That's fair to say. Okay,
Yep.
good. Okay, and then the only other thing I had was on those slides, the PFAS improvements and the UV improvements. One was going to happen after the other, and for reasons you don't want them knocking heads while they're trying to get the work done.
Right.
I'm just wondering if it was a logistics thing that the PFAS went first, or was it a priority? Hey, this is more on fire. We need to get this done first, or is it just logistics? This worked out.
It's more logistics, and we have we do have some other treatment plant upgrades that are going to be occurring this fall and next spring. And
Will there always be improvements?
Let's hope there's an end to it at some point. Yes.
Okay, I'll hold you to that. All right, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding Councilmember Behrman's comments on the public notice, we're going to have another public hearing on this, because the thing that's in the website, anybody look at it, 115 pages of engineer speak. I wouldn't expect any citizen to read through that and come in and say, oh yeah, I don't like $43 for PFAS treatment. Who's going to know what that is? So if we ultimately do the loan, which thank goodness we're not voting on it tonight because those numbers are eye-watering, and I didn't even know about how much till an hour ago, $4 million. according to this. And that's not the same presentation in the website that was shown to us tonight, by the way, either. So my question is it in the capital budget somewhere, the one we just approved?
The
$4 million?
The $4 million is not because we haven't committed to it yet. And we have.
That's why we do budgets. We say we
the
need it,
upgrades-
right? How are we
the-
going to fund it? It's a different story. If we need the $4 million, I don't know why it wouldn't be in our 10-year budget we just approved.
Right. The upgrades.
We just approved the budget an hour ago, and now an hour after that, I see a $4 million request for 23-24, and I'm looking in here trying to find it, and I see a big UV disinfection replacement one for $561. And Marilyn, maybe you can help me if I'm missing it somewhere where the other $4 million, $3.5 million is in this?
The PFAS is not in there, for one, but it is in the 10-year
It
plan.
is?
Yes.
I don't see it in the 10, I'm looking at the 10-year plan right here. Is it in there? What's it called in here? Any idea? I don't see any numbers that big.
And then I guess it's,
If somebody can
PFAS
help me, I just can't believe we approved the budget. We talk about everything. This sounds like the road issue last year where the hour after the budget's approved, we're talking about road necessity increases. I'm not saying I'm not going to support a loan, but two things. One, we'll have to have a better public hearing than what we had tonight because that was totally useless. And two, why isn't it in the 10-year plan? If we know we got to do this, we know so much we got to do it, we're having a public hearing on it. And yet it's not in the 10-year plan.
the UV disinfection is in the plan.
Yeah, it's 561,000.
Yep. And the PFAS, if it's not funded through the state, we would need to put it in the plan. And that's really where that was.
The state's not going to run the project.
So
There's a line item down here for funding sources. If we get a grant from the state, that would be in that line item, I assume.
Well, we haven't gotten the grant, and that's the
why
other
we
part of it.
budget. If we don't know where we're going to get the money from, all the more reason to put it in there and alert the council to it, I would think.
So these storage tanks are mothballed. They contain PFAS. We can keep them there for 10 years, and it would have no impact unless we have to add to them. And we can still add materials if needed to them and be in compliance. It's a liability. That's simply it.
Do you mind if I jump in real quick?
Yes, sir.
I think I would say it's not in the capital improvement plan, because if we weren't getting money to do it, we wouldn't be talking about doing it.
Okay. All right.
If that clears.
We don't have to do this. We're going to apply for a loan. If we get a nice loan, then we can have a further discussion about whether we even want to spend the $4 million. Except for the clarifiers or the UV.
Well, the clarifiers and the UV will happen anyway.
Okay. We'll find other funding sources outside this loan maybe for that.
And if the NPDES permits require additional items of treatment in the next 5 years, we'll be able to add that into this as well. That's really all I'm saying.
All right, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I mean,
It's not really.
We're
doesn't-
conservative, and we want to be able to plan for the worst and make what's best for the city. That's really all it is.
All right. So we don't have to do this.
No.
Do you?
All we're doing today is approving him to apply.
And the application is 150 pages long, and that's why it's in there.
Yeah, you don't want to go off chasing your tail if no one supports it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I don't know what the thoughts are on the council about another public hearing, but that was, we'll have to think about that. Okay, thank you, Tim, or Mr. Sigmund.
Any other questions? All right, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to adopt a resolution for a wastewater system improvement final project plan and designate Tim Sigma as an authorized representative to sign the submittal forms for the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy funding assistance through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tim. Brings us to new business number 4 is a recommendation to rescind CM-05-62-22 and then award a bid for a digital outdoor signage at Sibley Park to Pursuito of Wixom, Michigan in the amount of $19,730 from account number 411-751-986.542 Capital Improvements Civic Center. Do I have a motion?
Point of clarification. Are we doing this as one motion or two separate?
Should be two separate.
The way it's presented is a single motion, because if the first doesn't happen, the second shouldn't happen, type of thing. So based on prior practice, or one instance of it in the past that I can't recall the specific instance, but it was modeled after a resolution that was done, I believe, prior to my time in 2016 maybe, where it was done in this fashion. So that's why we chose to do it in this fashion. So right now there's a council action that failed at 3-3. And if you rescind that motion, it allows you to reconsider that item again as new business. If you don't, then that original motion still stands. So it'd be one action, two parts within the motion, as there is in often cases. Authorize, there's authorize a bid recommendation to a certain firm, and then authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement. It's a two-part motion, as in that case, based on historical practice.
So there'd be no benefit to divide the question, because if it passes, both pass. If it doesn't pass, then we're just back.
If you rescinded the first action, I suppose then you could do the second one separately if you wanted to, but it just was done that way because of the past practice.
Understood. Thank you.
So do we have a motion?
I'll move that we rescind it and put it on the table.
Second? Very good. All right. Ms.
Okay.
McGee.
Good evening. Before you is to discuss the option of purchasing 2 digital signs for Sibley Park. And staff brought this to council's attention. We're recommending 2 digital outdoor signs on the exterior pillars of the gazebo, which are the closest to the public. The signs are 55 inches high, 39 inches wide, and designed for outdoor use to provide clear picture regardless of the lighting conditions. The bid includes 50 backlit LCD outdoor mount, software and installation, and a 3-year warranty. The digital signs will provide event sponsors with more exposure and a cleaner, sharper look for the park, which will replace the 4x4 individual vinyl signs for sponsors that were displayed in the tent on the tent fence before. The digital signs will display sponsors throughout concerts and will rotate based on level of sponsorship. However, they will also function as a marketing tool to promote city events and information at a captive audience during the concerts. The promotional from the city can include anything from community events, parks and rec classes, community center rental information, park information, bike path, trail information, Michigan Airline construction schedules and updates, fire department notifications, police notifications information such as the hospitality house stuffed car, clerk's information, election, passports, dog license, DPW. So there are several opportunities to promote the city at this time. The signs will also be made portable if we'd like to utilize them at other events such as Fall Fest or tree lighting, so they can have a different functional usage. And just as an informational item, our current sponsorship program from Parks and Rec has generated $71,775 for $43,650 in cash and $28,000 in kind services. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Your Honor, if I may make a quick comment to add on to before the rest of the discussion part starts. Just drawing your attention to the first paragraph in the middle portion of the paragraph where it talks about if tonight's motion fails or is not addressed. I want to clear that up, right? So if council does not pass the motion tonight to rescind and then to award the bid, that May 10th motion is going to stand as a failure at 3-3, and the city will drop pursuit of the purchase, just to clarify.
No, just, it comes with outdoor mounts that will be on the gazebo area, correct?
Correct.
But now, how much will it cost us to get stands, so like, you wouldn't put them on the gazebo that for like the night, or tree, I mean, for the tree ceremony, because that'd be over there. So, do they have portable stands? And is that included in this
No.
price? And how much are those stands?
I think they run like 120. They're nominal. They're similar to the stands we have for the portable LCDs we use inside the community center.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Councilmember Gremlin Fox?
Thank you. I appreciate you talking about the other uses for the signs. The first thing that comes to mind to me would be recruitment. We could put these in various places and recruit fire,
Good point.
perhaps. I think it's a nice quality way to recognize our sponsors. My question would be, when, or who brought this up? Was it staff getting together and talking about ways to promote our sponsors, or was it a sponsor that brought it up, or who?
It was generated by staff,
Okay.
you know, and basically to promote the sponsors and give a cleaner look to the park, as well as promoting all the city events. And we have a captive audience every Thursday night, and it's a good way for us to get information to them.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Councilmember Berman?
Thank you. I did support this last meeting, and I appreciate that we have a City of Wixom business owner that's come to now, what, 2 meetings, right? He came last meeting? Is that who came last meeting, who the business owner for this?
No.
Oh, I thought he can't use City of
No.
Wixom business owner.
No, the bid, the lowest bid that we received was from a...
City of Wixom business owner.
Correct, but they were not present at
Okay.
the meeting.
Well, I appreciate that it came from a City of Wixom business, but I don't feel comfortable tonight voting to rescind a decision that council made last meeting. I think that's bad policy for us to start taking things back up just because they didn't go the way they wanted to go the meeting prior. I supported this last meeting. If it was rescinded tonight separately, and then I got an opportunity to just vote on this expense, I would support the expense. But I will be voting no to rescind, because I don't think it's proper that we're rescinding something that we just turned down last meeting. We have to trust our council members, and we all made a good discussion and business decision last meeting. It didn't go the way that I wanted, but I have to respect that, how they voted, and I'm not going to be voting to rescind this evening.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you, Mayor. I also voted in favor of this at the last meeting, and I still am very much in favor of it. A couple of clarification points. The $71,000 that we generated through the sponsorships, part of that can offset the cost for these, is that correct? Sponsorship costs could be
It could be
used?
utilized in that fashion, yes.
And did Parks and Rec debate and approve this unanimously as well?
Yes, we discussed all our capital projects at, I believe it was our January meeting.
Okay, so this was
We
brought up?
discussed it at Park and Rec. We discussed this with the Michigan Airline Trail, the pickleball leagues, all the things that were coming up in our capital budgets.
And again, you know, I think I made the statement last meeting was, you know, we had budgeted and approved the prior year $30,000 for civic center improvements. This is $19,000. So it's within a budget item. And I think from a look and feel, the tie-wrapped banners on the back fence that are flapping in the wind and break, you know, halfway through the concert season, I'm not in favor of that because it's an eyesore, and it can be used for several other things for community outreach and information, so I'm still in support of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Ms. McGee. I was against this last meeting, and look, it's not a passion that we don't do this, but I'm still against it. I'm uncertain how good it'll look, but that's subjective, and maybe you'll think it looks great, and you'll think it looks great, and I won't, and that's fine. But I'm iffy on how good this will look. My problem is that, there's 10 concerts, they can use 10 times. There's been a couple mentions of like, hey, there's all these other things we can do with it. You mentioned 2 other things, the tree lighting and Fall Fest. So now we're up to 12 days that we can use this $20,000 worth of equipment. I think I could get on board with this at some point. I just don't think we've thought, I'd like to see us really come up with, here's what we'll do, and this is what will be on it, and it just doesn't, for $20,000, 12 occasions, they're not even a full day, they're being used. And maybe there are a lot more uses for it. But I'd like to, I guess, see that there's a plan for it, that kind of thing.
Well, we do, all the departments have several activities. I mentioned 2 that were fairly large that we would be using and you'd get the most visibility. But any department could use it at any point for whether it was a police department putting something outside, whether it was a fire department recruiting, whether it was any other activity. I mean, it's meant to be a useful tool that could be mobile and used in other areas.
Well, we haven't purchased the stands for it yet. I get the intention.
The stands are a minor purchase.
I agree that is a minor purchase, but they weren't a part of this plan. Just 10 concerts were, and you got some pushback on their usefulness, and it seems like I just like to see go back, take some time to come up with a plan to use these that's that's more comprehensive, I guess. And again, and then there's the ordinance issue. Aren't we kind of contradicting what we're asking the community, the businesses, that they can't do it, but we can?
No, that's why we set it up the way we did it. No.
Explain, yeah.
That's why we set it up, not having it where you're viewing it from the street, that it wouldn't be a continual motion.
For the Sibley Park use for the concerts, you've got it set in a way that it won't contradict.
And that was double checked, yes.
Good, well, I'm glad for that. But that will limit its use in other ways.
Well, we can't put it out on the street, that's against our ordinance, and nor would we want to.
As long as it's not on the street, we're clean on that part?
Well, it can't be in the roadway, you can't visualize.
In the vision of a driver.
Of a driver.
Gotcha. Okay, that's my feelings, thank you.
Councilmember Gacho?
Thank you. Still not a fan of this. I think the uses that were put in here, the additional uses, were a response to some of the questions that came up at the last meeting, and rather than like, hey, we have this actual need to fill of increasing sponsorship or making our sponsors more visible, and here's the tools, aka the billboards, on how we're going to do that. That's not how this project came around, and it was presented from staff to Parks and Rec. It doesn't sound like to have been any idea from a Parks and Rec Commission member that came up. It was staff that wanted to buy this, and here's all the other ways we might be able to use it. But you look at them and you talk about park information and rental options and bike path and trail information and fire department notifications. Fire department has a billboard out in front of it. We've got a billboard out in front of ours. We also have social media and a website. So I'm not sure what giant relevant information people are going to get from these that isn't already available in other places. I would also worry that we start to talk about making them mobile. Really, the way to prevent that they don't get pushed over or blown over or go missing is by attaching them to a pillar or a wall. If we just put them on a stand, I would imagine that it's going to be fairly easy to push one over if someone decides they want to push one over. And so then we have a damage sign that we need to fix. So the uses to me were more of a response to some criticism a few weeks ago, rather than here's all the ideas we had on things that we need to publicize more. How do we do that? Hey, let's buy some billboards, they'll help. So I don't like it from that perspective. talked to more people who do attend the concerts. They don't want signs in their, electronic signs in their eyes when they're trying to watch a band at night. That's the feedback I got from people. From a sponsorship perspective, I still really struggle with this. Right now, everyone has a 3x5 vinyl sign that is out all season long. Now we're saying you're going to be a part of a 3x5 screen that scrolls one night a week for a few weeks a year. It is really taking away the amount of visibility that our sponsors are paying for, and they're paying good money to be sponsors and get those signs, and we use those funds, as it's been said in the past, to put on the events, not to spend on items like this. So it all seems like this was a, hey, we have some budget money left, what do we want to spend it on, rather than we have this need that we need to take care of, how do we address that? And for that reason, I don't feel like it actually benefits a single resident in the city of Wixom. It really doesn't even benefit our sponsors. So I'm a no on this again. I don't think it's helpful to really anyone.
Councilmember Sherb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm not really happy with this discussion piling it all into one. We really should be talking about rescinding first and the reasons for rescinding. To me, this motion is like a petulant child who goes to mom and she doesn't give the answer he wants. So tomorrow he goes to dad when they're not in the same room. I can't believe we're having the exact same conversation about the signs 2 weeks in a row. Same words been used 2 meetings in a row. And I don't understand why the answer wasn't accepted and move on. As has been mentioned in sidebar discussions, should we just cancel all council meetings when all 7 people aren't here? Rather than review everything a second time because we don't like the way a vote came out? I'm looking at council, but I should be looking at the person who puts the agenda together. So I'm not supporting rescinding, and I'm not supporting the signs. I offered the city manager a way to maybe sell this, have the sponsor or the vendor come out and set a sign up and put it up there for one of the concerts and see what it looks like, rather than guessing. Because the questions were about what's it going to look like. The other thing that troubles me is about the vinyl signs up, and everyone, oh, the vinyl signs don't look clean. Alex's Pizzeria has got a big vinyl sign over its front door right now. I just noticed last night. That's its main sign to go in. Nobody cares about that one. And I know that's against our signage code. So it feels a little hypocritical to be talking about fancy electronic signs and how ugly the vinyl is. And Councilmember Gottschall's got a good point about the vinyl's up all summer. So more visibility for the vendors. But my position is I don't support rescinding regardless of what it is. It's just not the right use of council and all the efforts it takes to have a good council meeting and an effective council every 2 weeks. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to rescind CM-05-62-22 and then award a bid for a digital outdoor signage at Sibley Park to Pursuto of Wixom, Michigan in the amount of $19,730 from account number 411-751-986.542, Capital Improvements Civic Center. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gottschall?
No.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox?
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp?
No.
Councilmember Smiley?
No.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yes?
Councilmember Behrman?
No.
3 yes, 4 no.
Thank you. Motion is denied. And with that includes new business, and we move on to the second call to the public. The rules to the call to the public again are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. All persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reasoning for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do I have anybody for the second call to the public? All right, I'm going to close the second call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. My city manager update has some information on work anniversaries ranging from 2 years from Jody Bannerman in the fire department and Karen Darling in City Hall up to 24 years with the police department's Brian Stawinski. We congratulate and join in celebrating all the work anniversaries for all of our employees. We've had a total of 9 employees that will be celebrating work anniversaries in the month of June, so congratulations and thank you to all of them. Also, I wanted to have an add-on item that I believe you received some email communication from our Public Safety Director and Police Chief Ron Moore regarding the another run at stuffing the squad car. So we want to make sure that we put the word out at this meeting, as well as the other publication efforts that we're making in a variety of other ways with social media and website and other things. The Stuff the Squad Car project and campaign is on again. It's out in front of City Hall and out in front of the police department. We're asking for anybody that is willing and able to make donations of non-expired, non-perishable food and toiletries that you can bring to the police department and place in the squad car, literally stuff the squad car. Ron Moore talked about with his upcoming retirement, that would make a fine retirement gift to have a record stuff the squad car campaign this year. So thought that was great of him to put that out there. It benefits the Hospitality House Food Pantry, which will serve a lot of people that need help, which I think is, from what I'm seeing, there's more and more people that are having that kind of experience currently, so it's a good time for us to conduct that Stuff the Squad Car campaign, so we wanted to make sure that we publicize that at tonight's meeting. And you can make donations of those non-expired, non-perishable food and toiletry items up until June 17th at the police department. Good. Encourage your generosity. Thank you.
Is that it? Good?
That is it. Thank you.
All right, council comments. Councilmember Garland Fox.
Thank you. I would like to thank and congratulate all those employees celebrating work anniversaries. And then I would also ask everyone to keep the families of the students and the staff that were killed in the shooting in Texas in your thoughts and prayers. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Berman.
Thank you. Just one maybe request, if someone from the city administration could look into it. I believe that I've signed up for every notification that I could get, from our city website. So like I get the city council agendas emailed to me when they're published. But I've never been able to find out a way to, get the planning commission agendas or the zoning board agendas, or more importantly, the public notices that are put on the website emailed out. And maybe that would be a beneficial option if that's something we can figure out to add an option for our residents. Or maybe I'm just doing it wrong and someone can just tell me I'm doing it wrong and there is a way to do it. But I would like it, I've seen a lot of times where something goes to planning and a lot of residents don't really show up, but then it gets to council because that agenda gets pushed out, we get more people here. If there's a way that we can make sure that our residents that want to be informed can be automatically getting the planning commission agendas, can automatically be getting the ZBA agendas, and more importantly, the public notices, I think that would be beneficial. And that could also serve a purpose for, maybe our vendors that are looking to, bid on our contracts, if they can sign up and they're getting a notice that, hey, we're accepting bids on this particular project, and that's automatically sent to them, possibly the same way. I feel like that would be more beneficial if we could provide our residents with more options.
We'll check it out and see if that's outside of the possibilities now and correct it if that's the case. I can't say that I have an encyclopedia.
Or just let me know if I signed up wrong in some way, shape, or form, but
So we'll take a look at those and see if there's something broke there that needs fixing.
thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, sir. I just want to echo what Councilperson Grumman Fox, mentioned about the, just a couple hours before we came in here, there was this awful tragedy in Texas at an elementary school, and we all feel that when, no matter how far away it is, and yes, there's several families that need every American to give them some prayer. Thank you.
Good. Councilmember Gacho?
Thank you. First, want to commend the impromptu VIP treatment that our public safety director and fire chief gave the city manager by protecting him from the sun glaring in the back window. That's real team player vibes right there. So
I was touched. And my corneas appreciate.
Wanted to keep the sun glare off of him, so that was great work. And then Tim, I saw on LinkedIn, did you win another award?
Yeah, the Hatfield Award.
Racking them up back there.
Yep.
Good job.
Thanks.
So I saw that on LinkedIn. Congratulations. When it comes to the budget, something that I've thought to ask in the past, but it's always slipped my mind. Rather than carrying the binders with us all the time, is it possible to get an emailed version for those of us who prefer to be a little bit more paper-free? Sure. Yes, okay. That'd be nice to have saved so we can just pull it up. The final thing is, I don't know in what sense we might be able to help, but with Gaylord and their tornado destruction that happened, I'm wondering if there's any way to reach out and see if there's any way that our city can help another Michigan city or not. I'm not sure how that would come about, but if there is any sort of resources that we might be able to provide or help, then hopefully we could offer that to them. Thank you.
Councilmember Sherman.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to seem angry all the time, so that's the way I come across. My apologies. But I did want to thank Finance Director Stamper, Marilyn, for leading the team through the budget process and spending some time with me today. Pulled her away from whatever she was doing, and she walked me through a few things that helped me understand, and I said I would be a wiser, more effective council member in the future. So thank you, Marilyn, for your work on the budget, and thank you, council, for getting it through. I thought it was pretty effective process we had this year. Thank you.
Good. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo some of the comments that Councilman Behrman made. I do get questions from residents a lot that say they swore they signed up for email notifications and blasts and don't seem to be aware or haven't got something or haven't received it. I don't know if that's a user issue, but I think there's something there, something worth investigating.
Check it out.
Also, we got a lot of exciting things going on now coming into June after this Memorial Day holiday, starting with the family fun nights, and the concerts, and a lot going on in the city. So partake. Thank you. I think it was Councilman Behrman sent us some photos of how Michigan Airline Trail Phase 2 is coming along. Looks like we have some asphalt rolling down now, which is really great.
And so some mints on the corner.
So that's great. Be nice
Going in a record time. Really
and get things finished so we can still enjoy them in the summer, right?
Right.
Also, just wanted to make a comment. In the past 25, 30 years, we had a practice at the first concert of recognizing our graduating seniors from our local high schools. And we've gotten away from that practice, I think, for the last 4 years, but I think it would be something worth considering getting back. I know back in the bountiful days of Ford Motor Company being in the community and other large businesses, there were some nice prizes that were given away to the seniors. I know my own children were in their late 30s now, were recipients of those, but it was a nice recognition of our graduating seniors at this time in their life. So maybe we consider bringing it back up with, I don't know if it's Parks and Rec that started that some 30-some years ago, but it would be a good idea to bring that back. Other than that, everybody have a safe Memorial Day holiday.
Thank you. I just want to thank and congratulate the 9 employees that are celebrating work anniversaries, including Mr. Sigma, who's got 7 years. And I want to reach out to people here, people if you're watching. We need all of our committees. We need volunteers. If you go online, you can look, get a description. You can get on Parks and Rec Committee. You can get on the DDA. You can get on Cemetery Board. You get on. There's 9 or 10 of them. But we need volunteers, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it's a very important tool that the city has, that these volunteers step up and do these jobs for us. And I really would appreciate it if people would consider volunteering for a committee or 2. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.